Action! In the world of rock music, few figures have sparked as much fascination, controversy and debate as Till Lindemann. Known for his deep, haunting voice, explosive stage presence and willingness to blur the line between art and provocation, he has been the focus of both admiration and reverence for decades. From his turbulent youth in the GDR to his rise to the frontman of Rammstein to scandals that tested the boundaries of fame and privacy, Lindemann has kept much of his inner world hidden. But now, at 62, something has changed. For the first time, he is speaking openly about the truth behind the facade, the pain and decisions that have shaped his life. Liberation from the shadows, Tilt's formative years. Born in Leipzig in January 1963, Till Lindemann entered a world shaped by stark contrasts, where art met control and the creative spirit was often shaped and sometimes suppressed by the heavy grip of the state. The German Democratic Republic was a place where ideals of collective strength overshadowed individual struggles, and for young Till, this set the tone for a childhood of privilege and pressure. His father, Werner Lindemann, was more than just a household figure. He was a celebrated children's book author in the GDR, a man whose words shaped the imaginations of countless young readers, but whose presence at home was often distant, absorbed in his own intellectual pursuits. Till's mother, Brigitte Gitter Lindemann, was a respected journalist who rose to become head of culture at NDR1 Radio Mecklenburg-Vorpommern in Schwerin after reunification. In a household full of books, political discussions, and artistic ambitions, Till was exposed to the demands of excellence at an early age. But despite this artistic environment, the atmosphere at home was anything but warm. By many accounts, the Lindemann household was formally and emotionally reserved. Till later recalled that affection was rare and well-preserved. He called his mother by her first name, Mutt, instead of Mama. A small but significant detail of the emotional distance that shaped his upbringing. Till learned early on that words could be both a shield and a sword. At the age of 9, he began writing fragments of poetry, perhaps as a secret outlet to make sense of the complexity of his world. These early lines laid the foundation for a lifelong relationship with language, one that would bring him both acclaim and controversy in the decades that followed. But despite this literary spark, it was initially the water, not the paper, where Till shone. His natural athletic talent and discipline as a swimmer caught the attention of coaches, and in his youth he was called to a children's and youth sports school, an institution that would produce elite athletes for the glory of the East German state. He lived in the school's boarding facility, far from the comforts of home. His daily life was determined by the strict rhythm of training and learning. The swimming pool became both his refuge and his cage. In 1978, at the age of 15, he competed for the GDR in the European Youth Championships. There he finished 7th in the 5,000 meters freestyle. A respectable result that nevertheless aroused great expectations. But fate had other plans. That same year, during the championships in Italy, a moment of youthful curiosity changed the course of his life. Till sneaked out of the hotel and met athletes from the Federal Republic, even accepting stickers from them, small souvenirs that were considered treason in the eyes of the GDR authorities. His actions were discovered, and what could have been dismissed as youthful recklessness became a criterion for exclusion in the political climate of the time. The dream of representing the GDR at the 1980 Olympic Games in Moscow was over. Labeled as unreliable, Till was banned from international competition. His once promising sporting future shattered almost overnight. To make matters worse, a serious injury came a year later that forced him to give up swimming altogether. At just 10 years old, Till found himself disoriented and robbed of his hard-earned identity. He returned to Rostock, lived in a modest new building in Aveshagen, and began an apprenticeship as a carpenter. He later worked as a basket weaver and technician, professions that offered little of the glamour or prestige he once knew. In search of connections or answers, Till moved to Drispeth to live with his father in a small artists' colony. The experiment only lasted 9 months. Their relationship, burdened by unspoken resentments and opposing temperaments, could not withstand the closeness. Werner later immortalized this difficult time in his book Mike Oldfield in the Rocking Chair, a memoir that paints the portrait of a father trying and failing to bridge the gap between him and his son. When Drispeth left, he did not return to his parents' home. Instead, he remained in the rural regions around Lake Schwerin, living with acquaintances, working with his hands and quietly cultivating the creative voice that would one day fill the world's biggest stages. Creating chaos from punk drummer to stadium firestorms.
Tesla is finished. Elon has failed. That is what they want you to believe. But tech expert Jeff Brown, who told everybody to buy
In the mid-1980s, with his athletic ambitions behind him and his hands hardened by years as a carpenter and basket weaver, Lindemann turned to another form of expression: music. The anger, defiance, and frustration that had simmered beneath the surface during his youth now found their way into the raw, unfiltered world of East German punk. He became the drummer for First Arch, a band whose name signaled their uncompromising stance. At first, Till was content to sit behind the drum kit and play aggressive rhythms that underlined the urgency of their sound. But it wasn't long before his deep, piercing voice and magnetic charisma thrust him into the spotlight. Between songs, he would occasionally take the microphone himself and sing encores with a dark charisma that commanded the attention of those around him. In 1988, fate, or perhaps coincidence, brought him together with two kindred spirits, Paul Landers and Christian Flake Lawrence of Feeling B. The two had arrived in the small village where Till lived at the time. Part of the countercultural, semi-nomadic circles of musicians, artists, and outsiders that flourished on the fringes of GDR society. Their meeting was as chaotic as it was fateful. A night of drinking, loud laughter, and shared resentment at the constraints of their world. A bond was formed immediately, a recognition of a shared rebellious language, a search for something bigger, louder, more dangerous than the East German punk scene could offer. The fall of the Berlin Wall changed everything. The collapse of the GDR brought both freedom and uncertainty. For Till and his future bandmates, it was the moment to take their future into their own hands. Richard Kruspe, another East German guitarist who was experimenting with heavier sounds, joined them, bringing with him bassist Oliver Reed and drummer Christoph Schneider. By 1993, the core of what would become Rammstein was complete. They submitted a demo tape to a Berlin competition for up-and-coming bands and won studio time. They used this opportunity to sharpen their fences. A unique blend of pounding industrial rhythms, sewing guitars and a sonorous, dominant voice that would soon fill stadiums all over the world. Rammstein's rise in the 1990s was nothing short of meteoric. Their 1995 debut album Herzliya introduced audiences to a band that wasn't afraid to push boundaries. Songs like Du riechst so gut and Seaman not only demonstrated their musical power, but also their flair for the theatrics. It wasn't just music, it was performance art full of fire, smoke and danger. Their international breakthrough came with the 1997 album Sehnsucht, led by the success of Du hast, a song that became an anthem of resistance and inner conflict in Europe and North America. On stage, Till embodied the sinister master of ceremonies, directing flames and fury, his imposing figure often draped in leather, metal, or bizarre costumes that underscored the band's dystopian, provocative aesthetic. Controversy became their constant companion. Each new album, Mutter Reese Rosenrod, brought sonic innovations and lyrics that played with taboos. Themes such as obsession, violence, forbidden desire, and social critique permeated Till's lyrics. His poetic roots were evident in the precision of his language, which drew on the traditions of German Romanticism, dark fairy tales, and the gloomy modernism of Gottfried Benn. It wasn't a shock for the sake of shock. Behind the flames and spectacle was an author who explored the uncomfortable spaces where love meets pain, power meets vulnerability. Till continued to cultivate his literary voice outside of the band too. His 2002 collection of poems, Messer, offered a glimpse into the private recesses of his mind, a world full of longing, harshness, and reflection. The verses were blunt, fearless, and often disturbing, just like the man himself. A decade later, Stillennacht deepened this image, combining melancholy with menace and opening a window for readers into the contradictions that defined him. The tender lyricist and the roaring frontman, the lover and the fighter. The observer and the provocateur. By the end of the 2000s and into the 2010s, Rammstein had become one of the most successful German bands in history, filling stadiums on every continent, their shows legendary for their precision and spectacle. The fire cannons, the giant mechanical props, the infamous foam cannon at Pussy. All of this became the hallmark of their concerts and cemented their reputation as masters of industrial metal theater. Till, at the center of it all, blurred the line between performer and character. The man who once hid behind the drum kit now commanded armies of fans, his voice and image burned into the consciousness of millions.
You only have a few days left to start earning a truly substantial passive income.
And yet, with every tour, with every album, the question became more pressing. Where did the staging end and where did the real Till Lindemann begin? Scandal and silence, the storm of accusations. Until the stage that had once been Till
Till Lindemanns Reich der Macht, des Spektakels und der Verehrung war, zum Schauplatz seiner wohl schwersten Prüfung. Was mit einer einzelnen Anschuldigung begann, entwickelte sich rasch zu einem Strudel, der den Mann, die Band und Millionen von Fans weltweit erfasste. Alles begann am 25. Mai 2023, als Shelby Lynn, eine junge Frau aus Nordirland, auf sozialen Medien, zunächst auf X, ehemals Twitter, und Instagram, ihre Schilderung einer belastenden Erfahrung bei einem Rammstein-Konzert in Vilnius, Litauen, teilte. Lynn zufolge war sie während des Konzerts backstage eingeladen worden, wo sie glaubte, für unangemessene Interaktionen mit dem ikonischen Frontmann ausgewählt worden zu sein. Am nächsten Morgen habe sie sichtbare Spuren an ihrem Körper bemerkt und war überzeugt, dass ihr während der Afterparty unbemerkt etwas verabreicht worden war. Die online veröffentlichten Bilder dieser Spuren lösten eine Welle der Empörung und Besorgnis aus. In den folgenden Tagen meldeten sich weitere Stimmen. Mehrere Frauen, einige anonym gegenüber Journalisten der Süddeutschen Zeitung und des NDR, berichteten von Erlebnissen, die Lynns Angaben ähnelten. Sie sprachen von einem System, das angeblich darauf abzielte, junge weibliche Fans für fragwürdige Begegnungen nach Konzerten auszuwählen und zu rekrutieren. Zwei dieser Frauen gaben eidesstattliche Erklärungen ab und erklärten, dass persönliche Grenzen ohne ihr Einverständnis überschritten worden seien. Eine weitere Frau schilderte in einem Interview mit dem ORF Ende Juli 2023, Lindemann habe sie auf eine Weise behandelt, die sie als aggressiv und ungewollt beschrieb. Die Vorwürfe waren verheerend, nicht nur in ihrem Inhalt, sondern auch in der Art, wie sie die öffentliche Wahrnehmung des Mannes veränderten, der so oft die Grenze zwischen provokativer Kunst und persönlicher Realität verwischte. Die folgende Medienlawine war unmittelbar und heftig. Nachrichtendienste in ganz Europa griffen die Geschichte auf und soziale Netzwerke wurden von Kommentaren, Forderungen nach Aufklärung und Rufen nach Konsequenzen überflutet. Universal Music, das Label hinter Rammsteins weltweitem Erfolg, stellte alle Promotion-Aktivitäten zur Band ein. Der renommierte Verlag Kiepenheuer und Witsch beendete seine Zusammenarbeit mit Lindemann unter Verweis auf die Vorwürfe, und auf sein umstrittenes künstlerisches Werk, einschließlich eines Videos, das angeblich problematisches Verhalten glorifiziere und sein 2013 erschienenes Gedichtbuch in stillen Nächten als Requisite enthalte.
This game, you're not ready for it.
Petitionen zur Absage von Rammstein-Konzerten, besonders der im Juli geplanten Auftritte im Berliner Olympiastadion, sammelten Zehntausende Unterschriften. Lokale Behörden erkannten die emotionale Wucht dieser Forderungen an, betonten jedoch, dass keine rechtliche Grundlage für Verbote bestand. Hinter den Kulissen nahmen rechtliche Verfahren ihren Lauf. Die Staatsanwaltschaft Vilnius teilte Ende Juni mit, dass aufgrund mangelnder objektiver Beweise keine Ermittlungen eingeleitet würden. In Berlin eröffneten die Behörden ihrerseits Ermittlungen, ausgelöst durch Anzeigen von Dritten, die weder direkt beteiligt waren, noch selbst Vorwürfe erhoben hatten, sondern sich auf Medienberichte und soziale Medien stützten. Doch auch diese Untersuchungen wurden im August 2023 eingestellt. Ohne Anklage, mangels ausreichender Anhaltspunkte für strafbare Handlungen oder Verstöße gegen das Betäubungsmittelgesetz. Lindemanns Anwaltsteam unter Leitung einer bekannten Medienrechtskanzlei zeigte sich kämpferisch. Die Anschuldigungen wurden als ausnahmslos unwahr bezeichnet und es wurde eine Vorverurteilung durch die Medien beklagt. Den Anwälten gelang es, einstweilige Verfügungen gegen mehrere Medien, darunter der Spiegel und einen bekannten YouTuber, zu erwirken, um die Verbreitung bestimmter Behauptungen zu unterbinden. Der Versuch, Shelby Lynn
led by a well-known media law firm, was combative. The allegations were described as untrue without exception, and there were complaints about a prejudgment by the media. The lawyers succeeded in obtaining temporary injunctions against several media outlets, including Der Spiegel and a well-known YouTuber, in order to prevent the dissemination of certain claims. The attempt to impeach Shelby attempts to silence Lynn in court failed, however. The courts ruled that her public statements reflected her personal experiences and opinions and should not be considered defamation or unfounded accusations. Despite these partial legal victories, the damage was done. The allegations left a lasting shadow on Lindemann's public image. For months, he remained silent, withdrawing from interviews and public appearances while the debate continued. Even though the courts ruled in his favor in some cases and no charges were brought, the controversy remained a constant companion. Fans and critics alike had to grapple with the uncomfortable question of where art ends and responsibility begins. And now, at 62, Lindemann has begun to speak out, not in defiance, but with a sobering recognition of the toll this chapter has taken. The man who once directed flames and fury on stage now faces the human task of confronting the consequences of a persona that perhaps sometimes became greater than he could control. The burden of the mask. Private life in the spotlight. Till Lindemann's private life has often been as complex and multifaceted as his stage persona. As a father of daughters, born in 1985 and 1993, he mastered the challenges of single parenthood after raising his eldest daughter alone for 7 years following a divorce. His relationships, usually short and intense, regularly made headlines, from his time with actress Sophia Tamala to his most recent relationship with Joel Murray Gerach, a model 41 years his junior. In late 2023, the couple were unexpectedly spotted in Paris, making their relationship public and unintentionally thrusting Joel into the spotlight. She later spoke openly about how she had to adapt to this new reality, balancing her own goals with the attention that comes with being associated with one of Germany's most famous and controversial figures. Despite the hustle and bustle, he always found refuge in nature. A hunter, fisherman, and someone who appreciates the solitude of country life, he divides his time between Berlin and Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. His passion for writing remains undiminished, even though it has repeatedly gives rise to controversy. His 2020 collection of poems, 100 Poems, was widely criticized for themes that some found disturbing, while others defended it as yet another attempt to explore uncomfortable truths that he has always confronted. Time and again, Lindemann struggles to separate the symbol itself, the person, from the mask. Reckoning with legacy. When the music fades away, when the last echoes of another sold-out stadium concert fade into the night, Till Lindemann finds himself at a special crossroads, where applause and controversy merge and leave behind silence. At 62, after decades at the helm of one of the world's most provocative bands, Lindemann's legacy is no longer defined solely by pyrotechnics, a powerful voice, or bold lyrics. It is shaped by reflection on the decisions and contradictions that have shaped.
Watch what peanut butter does to our body.
Celery with peanut butter. Peanut butter is one of the worst foods that you can eat. It's loaded with lectins and really has no health benefits. And they could have chosen almond butter from peeled almonds.
Shaped his path. His career, which has taken him from rebellious punk clubs in East Germany to huge arenas around the world, has always been alive with challenging norms, provoking debate and provoking thought. Songs once admired for their raw honesty and theatrical brilliance now also bear the burden of public scrutiny as fans and critics reassess their meaning in light of recent events. In public statements and rare interviews, Lindemann has acknowledged that the persona he embodied, the dangerous poet, the fearless provocateur, gradually took on a life of its own, sometimes overshadowing the man behind it. The image that emanated from his onstage presence also left him vulnerable to misunderstandings and, as he himself puts it, judgments that blurred fact from fiction. Lawsuits, media storms and the lasting effects of allegations have forced him to grapple with how performing arts can spill over into personal life in ways no artist could fully anticipate. Today, as he looks to the future with less touring and more time in seclusion, whether at his home in Berlin, his rural retreat in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern or immersed in writing, Lindemann faces his greatest challenge yet, redefining himself beyond the stage. The fire and spectacle may fade, but what remains? A man determined to reconcile the myths of his own creation with the truth of his experience, and perhaps find peace in the quiet spaces where music no longer drowns out reflection. What's your favorite Till Lindemann song or performance? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget
I was reading an interview with Kraftwerk. Kraftwerk up to date now, again, and I was reading that interview, and they got the same problem, machine guys and too German, and it looks like the Nazi time, and so Germans got a problem with that time, and everything that remember on the old times, the Second World War, and they came instantly up and said, that's Nazi, that's fascism, and whatever. But we always try in interviews or in performances to say, no way, that's not our intention, we got nothing to do with the
Direct from Las Vegas, Holiday Dreams, a spectacular holiday show. Experience the only holiday show.
In the last couple of weeks, German media and social media has been flooded with one big topic: the heavy accusations against Rammstein's lead singer, Till Lindemann. So what exactly happened? What do we know as of right now? And what are the consequences? Let's take a closer look. Hello, servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Feli. I'm originally from Munich, Germany, but I've been living here in Cincinnati, Ohio, on and off since 2016. So in the last few weeks, some pretty serious accusations have been made against Till Lindemann, the 60-year-old frontman of the band that is often considered Germany's flagship export in the music industry, the industrial metal band Rammstein. With over 20 million sold albums worldwide, they're the most successful German language band ever. They have fans all over the world, sell out gigantic stadiums, and for many, their music is the very first contact with the German language, which sometimes even sparks further interest in learning it or even visiting our country. Now, this isn't really the type of content that you guys are used to on my channel. I'm not a Rammstein fan myself, or of metal music in general, but this is a huge topic in the German-speaking world right now, and most of the newspaper articles, the statements from witnesses and alleged victims, and YouTube videos about this are in German, so I felt like it might be helpful to give those of you who don't speak German a summary of what's been going on. I'm going to tell you how all of this got started, what media investigations have uncovered since, what a German YouTuber has to do with all of this, what consequences there have been so far, and what the public reactions and discussions have been like. Please note that I myself don't have any kind of insider information here, and I can't tell you if and to what degree the allegations are true. I wasn't there. All I can do is summarize what other people and publications have said about this case and how all of this has been playing out since. And at the very end, I'll also share some of my personal opinion for those of you who are interested in that, but that's going to be separate from the rest. Everything started a few weeks ago, on May 25th, when the 24-year-old Shelby Lynn from Belfast, Northern Ireland, started sharing her negative experiences from the Rammstein concert in Vilnius, Lithuania on Twitter. I'm gonna link Shelby's tweets for you in the info box, and I'll also insert some screenshots for you guys throughout, so just pause the video whenever you want to read those. But to summarize it, she says that the week before the concert, she reached out to a woman called Alena Makeva, who has been known to work closely with the band, to see if there's any way she could get into the after party. And Alena responded and invited her to row zero, which is what they call the row right in front of the stage. And based on statements from other Rammstein fans that I've read over the last few weeks, being invited to this row also commonly comes with invitations to the pre and or after parties with the band or individual band members. Shelby was then added to a WhatsApp group chat where all of the invited girls were supposed to send selfies and say whether they'd like to attend the pre-party, after-party, or both. Alena told them how to dress for the show and also asked who still needed a ticket, which made Shelby realize that not all of these girls were regular Rammstein fans who bought their own tickets. At the venue, she and the other girls were then gathered by Joe Letts, an American musician and former drummer of the industrial metal band Combichrist, who, according to this website, is, quote, a full-time crew member of Rammstein, catering to the band's many personal needs on the road and hosting and DJing their legendary after parties backstage each night. Shelby says that he filmed the girls individually on his phone, many personal needs on the road, and hosting and DJing their legendary after parties backstage each night. Shelby says that he filmed the girls individually on his phone and then led them to a little backstage party room with lots of alcohol and a few snacks. They weren't allowed to bring their phones inside and were told that they should just start partying and get hyped. So the girls started talking with each other, and Shelby says that she had 2 drinks, a vodka and Red Bull and a Prosecco. And then Joe came up to her and said that Till Lindemann would like to meet her. She says she immediately asked why and if this was about sex, because that's not something she was interested in, but he reassured her that it was not about that. And that Till is a gentleman and just wanted to hang out with her underneath the stage during the DJ interval. He also said she shouldn't tell the other girls. Then reassured her that it was not about that and that Till is a gentleman and just wanted to hang out with her underneath the stage during the DJ interval. He also said she shouldn't tell the other girls. Then Till Lindemann himself came into the room apparently.